This is Goals with Soul, the podcast for visionary coaches and entrepreneurs, building your business with inspired action. In alignment with your mission and authentic message, so you can create impact for your soul clients and feel lit up every day. I'm your host, Jo Ingram, married mum of 3 daughters from London and a former ad agency director turned business coach and strategist. In Goals with Soul, we blend revenue generation with energetics, marketing strategies with pranic healing, and ambitious business goals with our soul's desires. If you're looking to build your business with less efforting and more ease, this is the podcast for you. Let's dive in.
Welcome to Goals with Soul. I'm Jo Ingram, and today it's a very special episode for me. It's really close to my heart for 2 big reasons. First of all, we're going to be talking about some of my absolute favorite subjects around magnetizing, around messaging, around being who you're meant to be in the world and creating a mission and a legacy. But also because the person that I'm interviewing today, the amazing Suzy Ashworth, represents a time in my life where I stepped up and was the person I wanted to be in that moment. Suzy is someone that I've followed for a little while now. She has broken through barriers. She's consistently taking herself to the next level, and I've admired her from afar until a few weeks ago when I met Suzy in person and realized that she is one of the most grounded, humorous people you could ever hope to meet, and invited her on Goals with Soul. Now, I talk about how that happened in more detail in the interview, which we're going to hear in a minute. But first, if you're not already familiar with Suzy, she is a 7-figure entrepreneur and a quantum transformation and embodiment coach. She has a superpower to help conscious entrepreneurs create 6-figure breakthroughs in their business so they too can expand into limitless living. And we do dive into what exactly limitless living looks like. Suzy's work has been featured in Forbes, Grazia, and on the BBC. She supports her global client base to create magnetic messaging that helps them to magnify their income and their impact, building heart-centered networks of loyal fans and clients across the world. She's also a Hay House author, and in fact started her original business as a hypnobirthing instructor. She is a believer in miracles and a mum to 3 awesome kids. She's open to all the experiences life has to offer. And I can tell you firsthand, she's open to sharing everything without filter. I'm excited to share this interview. I know it's going to be transformative in how you view your next steps towards success. So let's dive in. Hey, Suzy, thanks for joining Goals with Soul today.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel excited.
I'm super excited because everything I've seen you do and say has me super pumped up and inspired. So today I get to ask you particular questions that have occurred to me. And I tell you what, before I dive in, and I've got so many questions I want to ask, can you tell us a little bit about your origin story? Because it's mind-blowing, really, where you've come from and where you are now.
Yeah, so I've now been in business for about 9 years, coming up to 9 years, and I actually started off as a hypnobirthing instructor. The hypnobirthing changed my life in so many ways. So I've got 3 kids, all of them I birthed at home, all of them in the water. And actually it was after falling pregnant with my first son that I made a very clear-cut decision that I wanted to be able to say to him, you can live any life that you want. And when I looked at my life, and at the time I was working at the Guardian newspaper, I was selling advertising space, and I was very happy. I've been in media for 13 years, so I was very happy, but I wasn't fulfilled. I never went home and was like, oh, I need to tell you about my day. It was just a very 9 to 5 existence. And I just thought, I don't want to be the CEO of the Guardian. So what am I doing here? And that was the first kind of breadcrumb, the first nudge that I needed to be doing something else. It wasn't until I fell pregnant with my second that I actually took the plunge. I thought now or never. So on my maternity leave, I retrained as a hypnotherapist and psychotherapist. And then I thought I would add a little bit of hypnobirthing in for good measure. And very quickly after qualifying, because I thought that I was going to specialize in anxiety and depression, because everybody was anxious and depressed. And I did my first few sessions and I thought, God, this is just not me. I am not very good at this at all. But interestingly, with hypnobirthing, a lot of the women that you work with, or the families that you work with, there's a lot of anxiety in there. That's why they come. So it didn't leave my plate completely, but that's really where it started. And so I started off face to face, and then I did a program called B School, which was a pivotal moment in my entrepreneurial career, because that really just opened my eyes to coaching. It opened my eyes to, it's going to make me sound really old, but the internet, basically. This is at the time where you would go on to local forums and everybody would be active on the local forums, but you weren't really doing so much on Facebook. And I was just like, oh, wow. 3 weeks into that program, I had the idea for a course called the Calm Birth School. And that really changed the trajectory of everything that I was doing. So I had my own method. I worked with a business partner, so we had our own method. I ended up writing a book for Hay House called the Calm Birth School, the Calm Birth Method. And yeah, people were fascinated. They were just like, how have you done this? Because the concept for the Calm Birth School was to really support women like myself and my then business partner, who came from media, were into spreadsheets, drank champagne. And the market at that point was very knit your own knickers and eat crunchy granola, both of which I'm not averse to now, but at the time was very not me at all. And so we really carved out a new place for us in the marketplace, and the birth world were really, how the heck have we done this? What's going on here? And so quite soon after setting that up, I realized I had a passion for marketing. And whilst all of my peers were reading books on vaginas and birth and breastfeeding and all of that stuff, I was stuck, my head was stuck in the marketing books. And my coach at the time said to me, if you could do anything that you wanted, what would you do? And I said, I'd teach people how to build a business like I've just built the Calm Birth School. And she said, do that then. And I went, okay. And so I started coaching, and the rest is kind of history.
I love everything about that story. And it's so many, my head's firing off in so many different ways, because you were selling space at the Guardian and I was a press buyer back at a London media agency.
Oh, wow. Which agency?
Yeah. In fact, I only left the world of media, working for a big Omnicom agency back in 2020 at the beginning of the pandemic. So 20 years media director. And I know that you know exactly what I'm talking about. So completely get it from coming from that world. And I spent a lot of my time kind of hiding as I was becoming increasingly woo-woo, going off on these crazy weekends that involved all kinds of fun stuff, and coming into work and saying, yeah, didn't do much that weekend, because it was just a little bit not okay. It wasn't in line with the Mulberry handbags and the kind of lifestyle that I was supposed to desire, that actually was heading in a really different direction. Nothing wrong with a nice handbag, by the way.
Nothing wrong with a nice handbag, but it's interesting. I used to rep MediaCom and OMD, so I really,
OMD, yeah.
I always felt a little bit out of place. Because you got rewarded for being the life and soul of the party and the person who could tell the best stories, and the person who I was teamed up with, he really was the life and soul of the party, and he did tell the best stories. And so I always felt a little bit uncomfortable. And what was interesting is that, like a homing pigeon, I find my people, and all of a sudden, instead of being right in the middle of the party, I'd be at the side, but I'd find the one person who I could talk to about traveling, who I could talk to about, just life more. And actually I built up some incredible relationships with people who are still in my life, the peripheries from that time, because like will always find like, but the bigger picture of it really wasn't actually me.
Yeah. And I love how you followed those breadcrumbs, as you describe it, and started at the hypnobirthing side, which I completely relate to. I went for a water birth. I'm not going to go into my birth story. I've catalogued it in other episodes. It wasn't a smooth journey, sadly, but I totally understand the desire of so many women to look for something different and to lean into these new ways, of which you were at the forefront of that. And then moving over to actually teaching others how to build a business is something that so many of us kind of have in our visions for the future. But you've done it. You've gone right. You've broken the 6 figures, you've broken 7 figures, and now you're teaching others how to do the same. So I'd love to dive into kind of the elements and breadcrumbs that you have created for yourself, and what is the magic there?
I think that the magic, the only reason why I hesitate is because I feel that it's going to sound cheesy, but it's true. I think that the more of myself I've allowed myself to be and become, the more people feel me. They feel my heart. They feel connected to me. And in that connection is where people decide that they want to jump in and they want to be closer. Because I think that we're all on this quest of wanting to be more of ourselves. And I think where we get stuck is that people don't believe that being themselves is going to be enough. And so they try to emulate other people and what they think is going to make them successful, and they miss the mark. And in the missing of the mark, they decide that it's them that is the thing that doesn't work. And you have people leaving the industry and going back to their 9-to-5s and it just not working out. And it's like, so much of what I do in business is the same as what I did in hypnobirthing. So helping people define their vision and then sharing the tools with them to get to where they want to get to. But the thing that underlies that is helping people understand, 1, that they are inherently lovable, 2, that they are worthy, and 3, that they are limitless.
Wow.
You know?
That word limitless, I know that's one that's very much attached to what you create, and it's a very evocative word. What does limitless mean to you, and how are you living it in your life?
I think that what limitless means to me is no barriers, it's no obstacles. And I'm not living that all of the time because I would love to, but it's challenging. And the biggest challenge is our own mind, because our mind is inherently limited. It's only when you start understanding and playing around with the energetics of life that you understand that me here in Whitstable, and I'm not sure, I think you're kind of Midlands up northy way, are you?
I'm North London.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, North London. Yes.
So, but maybe the girl that you were talking to at the event was.
That's right. When we met a few weeks ago, I was with lovely Jenna, who, yes, I think you're right. But I'm London born and bred.
Yeah. Well, look, me in Whitstable, you in North London, we can connect with each other. And the connection goes beyond the electricity of Zoom. And, you know, I work with people all around the world, people in Australia, Bali, Thailand, where I've said something, I've not even been speaking directly to them, and they've felt a shift, a cellular shift in their body. And when you understand that that is possible, that the words that you say can help somebody make a cellular shift in their body from around the world, you start to understand that the limitations are what's in the mind. And so it's brick by brick, story by story, block by block, removing those barriers. So I'm able to step into and live more into what I know in my heart to be true, that we're not only limitless, but we're all connected. There's no separation. There is nothing that separates me from anything that I desire. And so the illusion of separate, the illusion of whatever I want is outside of me. I spend my downtime looking at those stories and just picking them apart.
And I love that you point out, so full of integrity and truth, that we're all still a work in progress. It's not a matter that there are gurus out there, even 7 or 8 figure gurus, who have it all sussed. Everything is perfect and they've just stepped into enlightenment. But the truth is, it's the daily work. It's showing up and acknowledging and facing it every day that seems to make the difference between people that are not satisfied but stuck, and those that just keep moving to their next level. Is that your experience?
Well, 1000%. It's, are you willing to look at where you're not living into what it is that you're teaching? You know, that's the question I'm asking myself all of the time. When I'm in comparison, it's like, am I going to allow myself to get lost in the well of comparison, like in the tunnel of doom? I'm not good enough, she's better. Like, am I going to get lost in that, or am I going to catch it? Am I going to catch it and then ask myself, what do I truly believe about her success versus my success? Well, to start with, there's no fucking verses, you know. So what am I going to believe about her success and my success? Well, I'm going to choose to believe that the reason I'm seeing her success is because it's a signpost for what is possible. And so rather than feel jealous, rather than feel less than, can I feel excited? Can I feel like that there's an opportunity here? And the person who's able to see the opportunity, the way that they speak is different, the way that they behave is different, the way that they sell is different, the way that they show up is different. So that person is going to see the progress so much more quickly than the person who says, I need to retract, I'm not quite good enough. Well, maybe when I'm as good as her, then I'm going to be able to sell the thing, then I'm going to be able to. That's not going to happen, because you've just diminished yourself. So how quickly can I catch the stories? Because they're very subtle. You know, for me now, in the beginning, they were big and glaring. I'm not allowed to have money. Don't come from money. Like, people who have money are bad. I'm not allowed to like, they were big, they were obvious. Now, because of all of the work that I've done over the years, they're much more like scarce. When scarcity shows up, it's much more refined, it's much more sneaky. And then I'm like, oh, the reason I didn't want to do that is because I'm afraid. Because I'm afraid that it's all going to stop. I'm afraid that it's, oh, right, got it. So what would I choose if I wasn't afraid? Okay, do that. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And literally the stories that you tell, and those that you tell publicly, and those that you share, literally have the power to shift other people's mindsets instantly. I mean, a good example is my interaction with you when we met at the Wellness Festival in London. And everybody needs to hear this, because you were sat there on the stage, just like totally chill. It was a small, intimate group. And you just started telling a story about acute constipation, right? And I sat there and I was like, what the hell? Is she really doing this? And then I sat there and I thought, I've lived this. I have been there.
Yeah.
It's like most women who've had a child would have probably experienced it. We've all been through a time when we have clenched and kept it in and been terrified of the release and all of that. And you sat and you took us through this narrative arc. And at the end of it, sure, I took on so much from that story. But in the context of what you just said, you were like, what can you be? What stories are you telling yourself? And I sat there and I suddenly told myself a new story. And I was like, Suzy's just so human. I wonder if she'd like to come on my podcast. You know what? I'm just going to reach out while I've got this idea dropping in. And I did. And you were like, sure, that would be lovely. When should we set that up for? And I just want to just take a moment and think about all the times that I and everyone listening have had an opportunity to just lean in and just say, hey, but have been stuck because they've got these stories like, I'm not good enough. They would never say yes. I couldn't even, and whatever that context is. And yet there it is. It's just waiting for us when we step into being a person that can do the harder things, right?
1,000%. It's all there. Like, a core belief I have is that every desire that I have is that it's just beyond my fingertips. Like, it is all there. And it's just a case of me choosing to be the person. And in the choosing to be the person who, I become more and more of an energetic match. And the energetic match happens first, and then it takes a little bit longer for the physical to catch up. But the belief is that that's the process. It starts with the deciding to be that person. I decided to be the person who lived a life that where I would be able to say to my son, not just say to my son, I could show my son that anything is possible. You know, that was who I needed to be. And I decided the moment I found out that I was pregnant with him, that I was going to be able to have that conversation. He was going to be able to view that in me, you know. I've got by the time this comes out, people will know, but I'm super excited to be speaking on stage at Expert Empires in September, on the same day as Stephen Bartlett. And when my son heard, who's 11, he was like, oh my God, Stephen Bartlett, can I come? And I just thought, that's it. Like, of course you can come. It's just, he's going to get to see, but he doesn't want to go to see me, but he wants to go to see him. But that is it in practice. It's taken 11 years to get here. And it feels so good. It feels so exciting. And that's the commitment that I make. And this opportunity has been in the ethers, you know, the opportunity to speak on stage in front of however many people, that has been in the ethers. I just needed to decide that I was going to be that person.
And I love that you said about it being 8 years in, because there are so many people that I know listen to this podcast and they're a year in, 2 years in, and they've got this narrative and story going on in their heads. It's like, I can't seem to do it. I haven't made my 6 figures in my first year or had that massive launch. What am I doing wrong? And yet so many people who are massive and done so well, and you're a great example of that, actually had a longer journey, certainly at the beginning, to find where their actual sweet spot was. Can you talk to that for a minute?
Yeah, so what I actually said was, it's taken 11 years to get to this point because my son is 11. And that was the planting of the seed. And I think that what has been so helpful for me, and when I really look at my trajectory, I talk about this being my 9th year in business, which is because I incorporated in 2013, but I didn't make my first sale until December of 2014. So really my first proper year was 2015. So when I look at that, the trajectory has been quick and slow. You know, it's been quick and slow. But the thing that helps me most right now is just extending the timeline. And so rather than thinking about what's happened this month, what's happening this year, is to know that this is a legacy business that I am building and I'm in it for a lifetime. Now, of course, in 10 years' time, I might think differently. However, it takes the pressure off me, because I have big goals, big dreams, big aspirations. But if I needed to make 10 million in the next year, the quality of life that I lead would be completely diminished. The way that I viewed myself in my business, if I needed to make 10 million next year right now, would be, I would go from being like, you are killing it, you are rocking it, to you are failing. There is no way that you are good enough to do this. You can't do it. Whereas when I say to myself, I've got a lifetime, like if it takes me a lifetime to have 10 million in a year, am I going to die satisfied? Fuck yeah, you know, because in between that point and now, there are going to be some really beautiful years, you know. So it just take the pressure off yourself needing to do it all now. And I think that one of the biggest self-inquiries that I continue to have right now is to ask myself, why do I want it? Why do I want a £10 million year? And I think that frequently when it comes to money is people think that if I have the money, then I'll be happy. If I have the money, I'll stop feeling stressed. If I have the money, I'll start feeling secure. And every wealthy person that you will meet will say the same thing. Money gives you money, but it doesn't give you safety. It doesn't give you security. What happens when you've got money is that you then, if you haven't done the inner work, you then worry about losing it. And so that sense of security you thought that you were going to get when you didn't have the clients, it doesn't come when you've got the clients. You're in like grasping, how do I keep it mode? So you got to do the inner work, and the inner work is to know your fullness. It's everything that I was saying at the beginning, to know that you are completely full, to know that you are more than good enough, to know that you are inherently worthy and inherently deserving. So that if you have a month where you make £10,000, followed, and the month prior to that you made £50,000, you don't feel less than. That's the real work. And it's the ego that needs to be the best, be the biggest in the quickest amount of time. That's how the ego manages success. Now, I'm not the type of person to be like, banish the ego. We all need an ego. And there's this, and I don't know who said it, but it's quite a famous saying or thought, where we want our minds to be our loyal servants. We don't want our mind to be our master. And so a lot of the work that I do now with clients who are already at that 6-figure plus mark is really unpicking, what does that mean? You know, so that you are not being driven by the ego. You're coming from a place of, I do everything that I desire to do from a place of overflow. So when I have a multiple 6-figure launch, as I'm on my way to 7 figures, that's beautiful, but it doesn't define who I am. I know who I am.
Yeah, so true. And it's like, as people are on their way to making their first 6 figures, and they're feeling under pressure to pay the mortgage and just go full time, if they're already, you know, trying to side hustle it, what are the kind of things in your experience? And I know you work with so many coaches at all different levels. What unlocks the difference between that person that falls into the panic and can't seem to find the strategies that work, and those that seem to do exactly the same strategies and the clients start flowing towards them?
Yeah, I think it's core beliefs. I think it's the way that you think about yourself and the way that you view the world. I think that those things are the biggest differences. I think that when we use a strategy and we think that the strategy is the key, you fail most of the time, or you get to a certain level and then it stops working. And the reason it stops working is because you are the key. You're the secret. All strategies work. Let me tell you a secret. All strategies work. All of them. The masterclasses work, the challenges work, the webinars work, the 5 days, the 3 days, the 2 days, the 1 day, the paid, the free, all of them work. It's your alignment within the strategy that will dictate whether it is successful for you or not. So if you think that following the blueprint, like if it was as easy as following the blueprint, nobody would fail. It's your alignment within the blueprint that matters. So for me, I love like challenges and workshop launches. I love taking people on a journey over 5 days. Like I love that. I love a lot less a webinar where I'd have to take the person in a journey over like an hour. I like to have more time with people. And you know, the biggest launch that we've had on a 5-day challenge type things, £640,000, which just really blew my mind that was possible. But the reason that it was possible, not because I had loads of people signed up. I didn't have loads of people like signed up to the actual challenge. The reason it was possible is because I'm just so in alignment with that format. Now, I'm in alignment with the format because I love the journey. And then I had a plan, and I used the plan in alignment with my strengths. So some of the things that I didn't do, some of the things that I did do, but I did the things that were in alignment with me. So all of the boxes were ticked from a me perspective, not from the, if you don't do it exactly like this, then this is going to fail, you know? And that is really, I think the thing that people find hard is believing that that's true. You know,
yeah,
intellectually they get it, but they don't really believe it's true. And that's how the marketing industry does so well, because it's always selling the missing piece of the puzzle.
Yes, there's always another thing you can learn, another little tiny piece of the puzzle, as you described it, that, oh, if you just get this welcome sequence right, or, oh, if you just learn how to craft the perfect webinar, if you just, and so on. And consistently coaches are missold training after training after training, and they keep finding it's not the magic bullet or the secret sauce or any of the other words that we love to use. Instead, it's just something else cluttering up their inbox, making them feel less than because they didn't implement it successfully, and so they move on to the next one.
And that's the thing. So this is the shiny object issue. And what I was saying today on my live before coming on here on Instagram is that what you get to do is find something that you like doing, and maybe you've seen a little bit of success with it, or maybe you haven't seen a lot of success with it, but you just really enjoy doing it. Great. You do it, you get a benchmark, and you get to ask yourself, who do I need to be, and what gets to shift within what I'm doing? How do I upgrade it? How do I refine it in order to increase the impact that I can have with this thing? Not, I didn't make six figures, this is the wrong thing, I need to do something else. So it's when you can find your enjoyment and alignment, and a big part of this is to be able, and it's very difficult when you're in that first six-figure period, but be able to separate what you're doing from the money that you're making. So one of the beliefs that has served me so well and has got so much better over the years, I definitely didn't think and act like this in the beginning, but the clients that I work with who are at the early stages of their business, when they get this, it unlocks so much. And that is to know that I'm going to be fully supported by money, regardless of what I do. So you separate money from the aligned action that you take in your business. Now, you take aligned action in your business because, in my experience, you've got to meet the universe halfway. Like the phrase that everybody knows for me is faith plus action equals miracles. I haven't worked out how to meditate my way into a multiple seven-figure brand, but if it's available, then I will work it out one day, and then I will share it with the world. But right now, I have to take aligned action. But I take aligned action from a place of, I want to share this message with you. I believe that if you are able to access what I'm saying here, it's going to change your world. It's going to change your life. It's going to change your family. It's going to increase your income. It's going to be fucking amazing. So I need to share this with you. And the aligned action is, well, how do I want to share it? Blah, 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 blah. Now, I've got to a stage in my business where I feel very fortunate that I get paid for sharing that message. But the secret is I would share the message anyway, and I get paid anyway. And I might get paid through my business, or I might get a tax rebate, or somebody might gift me, or I might, but the money that I'm a match for is the money that I'm a match for. It's not actually connected with the action that I take. I take aligned action in relation to my mission and the vision and the impact I desire to have in the world, but the two are not intrinsically connected. And that gets a mind-boggling shift for most people, especially as in the early stages of business, it can be very helpful for you to be like, you know what, I'm offering great value, and so I should then get paid. And that is, especially for heart-centered entrepreneurs, they want to feel like they're doing something good and that they deserve to get paid because they're doing something good. And so in the beginning, that's helpful until it's not helpful, until you get to a stage where it's way more useful for you to really know at the core of your being that you're worthy and deserving, regardless of what it is that you are doing. So we have to separate them out. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It's one of those things that like intellectually makes sense, but you have to like feel it actually drop in and embody it. And that's where so many of us, I'm like, you know, one of these A-type driven ex-corporates, like so many women that enter coaching and the heart-centered space, but we bring a lot of that baggage with us, and it means that we devour information fast. It's like, I mean, goodness, the amount of books and everything just whoop, and it goes to the head. But we also need to take that moment and actually start to live it, to feel it, embody it. And you've just given a classic. And I know that I'm going to be re-listening and allowing that to actually drop in. And I'll invite anybody that feels similar to me to do the same, because it's not enough to hear it. You have to feel it for this to make the shift.
You have to feel it. You have to be it. For me, I surround myself with people who are living examples of it. You have to catch yourself when you're not in alignment with it. You know, that is the work. And having the self-reflection piece and asking yourself the question, if I knew this were to be true, if I knew that it was true that I just got to be an energetic match for the money that I'm an energetic match for, regardless of what I do, regardless of what I say, what would I choose to do today? What would I choose to say? And often the answer is very different from, well, this person said I need to do 5 posts on Instagram, and so this is my 3rd post, and I'm going to sit at my desk for the next 6 hours because I can't think of the other 2 posts I need to write, but I've got to do it, otherwise I'm not going to make 10k this month.
Oh my goodness, that is typical life for so many entrepreneurs at those early stages as well. You've hit the nail on the head. And this is something else I was talking about earlier. Your messaging is so on point. Like you really get what the reality is for people and where you fit into that. And it's, I guess, no coincidence that both of us come out of a similar industry, and both of us, I'm some way behind you, but heading in a similar thought process, because I'm all about messaging and all about bringing authenticity and being yourself and showing up and magnetizing in a way that lights you up. And of course, so much of the information out there is like, find what people need and do that, deliver that, which of course just means we emulate the coaches who've been before us. And I fell into that trap massively in my first year, even to the point of speaking in a certain way on my podcast. It was just, I felt like I couldn't just be me and just talk the way that I just talk to everybody, right? Luckily, that's well gone now. And I think that the reality is so many people are showing up and they're not understanding that they can be themselves. And I know that this is something that you just completely specialize in helping people do. And what is this piece for you? I'd love to hear how you help people understand what their messaging is and how to bring that.
I think that that question that I asked is, well, it's interesting because I've just launched a new program called Magnetic, which is all about messaging. And the tagline is messaging that magnetizes millions. It's not what you think. And it's not what you think is about really helping people drop out of the head intention, which is ego, into heart intention. And I like to do that in a very, very simple meditative way. I get people to close their eyes, I get them to take a few deep breaths, and then I just say, drop down out of your head and into your heart. And then the first question that I ask people to ask their hearts is, what is your heart's intention for me within this program? You know, and within this program, it could be magnetic, but it can also be the program that you're bringing to life. And that can sometimes end up being the message that you want to communicate with people, but often it's a message for you. And in the listening of that message, people get something that is quite pure. There's no side, there's no edge, but they get to be able to hear their inner voice in a way that often we don't make time and space for. I'll then invite people to do it again, and I will get them to ask the question, what is your heart's intention for the people that participate in this program? And that's where the gold is. Because again, what will come up is a really beautiful, really pure answer. And then are you going to have the courage to communicate what it is that you've just heard? And that's where the biggest resistance comes in, because frequently the answer's deep. Frequently, the answer goes way beyond the surface of the mind that says, we want to get 10 people in here, and because this is the program that we think that they need, and that we think that this will be the thing that's going to sell. And obviously, and that's why people have trouble with the messaging, because they're coming from the head intention, and there's no guts behind it. There's no heart behind it. So when they drop into the heart and they hear that message, it's then, okay, this is me. This is all of me. This is the depth of me. And you have to be willing to then, am I willing to show people the depth of me and not get 100 likes on the post? Am I willing to show people the depth of me and maybe not even get 1 like on the post? What am I going to make that mean? And so the message is one part, hearing the message and just sharing. It's so simple that people want to make it. People don't believe that it can be that simple, but often I say, when you say your messaging is on point, the majority of the posts have come from my journaling sessions. They come from me doing the morning pages and me self-coaching myself on something, and then looking at the paragraph going, whoa, that was good. The message is for me and for you. It's come from the heart. So, and sometimes there'll be 300 likes and other times there'll be 50 likes. It doesn't matter, because what I trust, my core belief is that I will connect with the person who is ready to connect. And when we connect with the people who are ready to connect, they're ready to say yes, they're ready to jump in, they're ready to join me. And so even though I don't have the biggest Instagram, I do not have the biggest email list, I don't have the biggest of anything, what I do have is a very loyal group of people, some of which started with me in my hypnobirthing days. Some of them, the first program they bought from me was like £97. These are people that have gone on to spend tens of thousands of pounds with me. They've been with me for over 9 years. We connect. And so the message, when you can come from the heart intention and have the courage to be vulnerable and share from that space, and have the courage to continue sharing from that space, even if sometimes it will fly and sometimes it won't fly. So when I can have the courage to share from that, even if it doesn't fly, choosing to know that I get to connect with one person, like it's the law of one, the power of one, knowing that when I can connect with one person with this message, I can connect with another, and I can connect with another, and then another, and another, and another.
Powerful, really powerful. And so many of us get stuck because, of course, we're thinking about connecting with hundreds or thousands, and it dilutes our message. It means that we're just being bland, we're imitating others. When you just said it all, it's just showing up vulnerable, authentic, and sharing the human reality of what's happening day to day, so others can connect and say yes. So beautifully put.
For me, the way that I work is I have soul-based messaging, I have strategic messaging, and then I have conversion messaging. And with the strategic, soul-based messaging is about you, strategic messaging is more about them, and then the conversion messaging is just really inviting people to take action. So we said it at the beginning when we were off, when we were off audio, that mix of the energy and the strategy, and I probably because of our backgrounds as well, it will always be like that for me. So, but my belief is that 80% of the content that you create can be soul-based, and if you nail that, you need very, very little of the strategic content. And I also believe that when you are coming from that heart-based place, every time you make an invitation, it's not about you. You're not doing it for the money because you know that you're already going to be looked after with the money. It might come through your business, but it could come through an infinite number of other channels. You invite people to work with you because you know that the power of the work that you do, you know the magic that is available for them. It takes away the guilt, it takes away the shame, and that should be incorporated really into pretty much all that you do.
I love that. I love that. And, just to reiterate as well, although too often we are led to believe that manifesting and this kind of stuff is a passive, just vision-based work. I love your phrase here because you're talking about taking action based on the miracles that you want to create.
It's aligned action, it's intuitive action, it's not action for the action's sake, it's not being busy, feeling like you need to do all of the things in order to make it happen. And I think that one of the biggest shifts that continues to take place in my world is knowing that the masculine and toxic masculine, which I think in the industry of media very, very push and force yourself to the limit, versus the receiving and surrendering and the being, the feminine, the divine feminine. And so the practice of allowing that part of me to lead is an ongoing practice, but it has changed me.
Everything you say, I'm super resonating with, because I was in the wounded masculine, and I even ended up having massive burnout 6 months into my business because I just carried over all of the high expectations and work practices and overdoing, overproving, all of that straight into my own business. And 6 months later, I just I shed the layers. I spent 3 or 4 months walking around the woods, journaling. I became a certified pranic healer and a breathwork facilitator. I was just right, this is stopping here. It's all about that divine balance. And I can't say I do it well all of the time. It's a constant process. But I'm so glad that you highlighted that. And you know what? I could talk on and on because everything you say is sparking more ideas. But for today, reluctantly, I'm going to have to draw this to a close, not least because it's my husband's birthday. So I must do something nice for him. But before we go, Suzy, could I invite you to suggest some, I call it inspired action, but today we're going to call it aligned action, in line with the verbiage that you like to use. What aligned action could we take in the space of a day that will help us really move forward in all the ways that you've described today?
I think I want to invite you to look at something that you have been procrastinating on because you are afraid of getting it wrong, or afraid of not having the skill set, or afraid of it not being quite the right time. And my invitation for you is to drop down into your heart, close your eyes, and I want you to ask your heart what its intention is for this project. And once you get that answer, ask it, what is the next best aligned step for me to take? And I want you to take that step today.
Fantastic. And I'm going to suggest as well that if you've got a lot of value out of this, you literally go right back to the beginning and start again. because Suzy's just dropped so many pearls into this one conversation that I just know, I can feel it, that if you listen to it all over again, you're going to get a completely different set of ideas and inspirations. Suzy, I can't thank you enough. This has just been pure gold, as I just knew it would be. And I know that more people want to discover you online. So please share, where can we find out more about you?
Yeah, I mainly hang out on Instagram, so Suzy, SUZY_Ashworth, or I have my free community over in Telegram. And actually, if you go to my Instagram in my link tree, you'll find the link for the Telegram group, which is called the Quantum Success Hub.
Amazing. Just say thank you for joining us today again, Suzy.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
My thanks again to Suzy for sharing all of that with us today. I think the reality is that we get in our own way so much of the time, and Suzy shone a light on that today about how she, through her mindset and energy work, has created next level opportunities every single step of the way and now teaches others to do the same. And it's our opportunity today to review what's holding us back, to decide that we're going to be that person now and step into our future reality, because we just know it's going to happen and we can lean into that trust. And Suzy guides us with thoughts about taking aligned action. It's so important not to just think it and feel it, but to then act on it. And I personally find that when I do that morning walk in the forest and I get ideas, if I action them in the moment, magic happens. And I know that if I sit on them and think I'll do it later in the day or later in the week when I've got more time, those thoughts and those energetic moments drift away. And I may be paraphrasing it slightly, but Suzy gave us a prompt earlier in the show. She said, if I knew it was true that I was an energetic match for all that I want already, what would I choose to do today? And that's going to stay with me, because making decisions about what we do day by day is what then compounds over time. And so again, let's just choose to show up with inspiration and take action from that point. And if you've enjoyed this episode, which I know if you're hearing this, you certainly have, please make sure you hit the subscribe button on Goals with Soul and leave me a 5-star review. It really helps others to find this podcast and get access to these insights too. And if you've got any comments you'd like to share, come find me over on Instagram. My handle is @IamJo.Ingram. So as always, wishing you an inspired action week. Take care. Bye now.